Hi everybody, it's Roger Terry here. Welcome to the Wednesday webinar. Looks like we have 5 people arrived so far, so we'll just give a few minutes whilst we're waiting for other people to turn up. Okay, well let's get going because we've got half an hour for this first Wednesday broadcast. These are a new thing for us. We thought we'd kick it off before 2017 and do our first Wednesday webinars. So 1 or 2 a month for 2017. And taking topics that we can apply NLP to. So as you saw, today's topic is learning how to stay. And you'll be welcome to offer a topic up, and we'll see how we can do with that in the future webinars. So some of you have trained with me before, and perhaps with Emily too. Some of you have been to the practice group, no doubt. And I know some of you are quite new to evolution training. So welcome everybody. Emily and I have been teaching NLP since 1996 and other personal development techniques. So we're both master trainers of NLP. And as Emily said in her text, she's moderating this evening. So perhaps we just go over for Emily to say hello.
Hi everybody, here we are. And Roger was quite garbled then, so I do hope that everybody can hear clearly. I am going to be your moderator this evening. There's Posh. And so do put notes in the chat room. You can choose to let everybody know what you're saying or just put it to admin, and then I will give Roger the questions at an appropriate time. Looking forward to speaking about how to say no, something that's very dear to my heart, and really looking forward to see how creatively people can take this into their everyday life so it can help make life more pleasurable. Okay, over to you, Rog.
Okie dokie. Well, let's get going. I'm going to disappear from your screen. I know you'll be disappointed, and I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the PowerPoint that I put together. So just bear with me a minute while I do that. And you should now have the screen share on with a nice purple and black screen saying "Learn to Say No with Me." This webinar, you know, why about saying no that some of us find so difficult, and so many with mixed motivations and emotions. And we end up committing to some things that we afterwards kick ourselves for acceptance. So let's take a look at from an NLP perspective of how and what we might be able to do to make a better job of it. See, there are 2 keys to effectively saying no. And first one is your words, what you say and how you say it. And the second one is what state you're in. State plays a big part in whether you're able to say no effectively. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So why don't we say no? Well, we're nice people. We don't like to refuse requests. Often we get concerned about how others will see us, and we perhaps worry that we won't be seen in a good light. We often don't want to hurt people's feelings, that we feel we might hurt their feelings if we turn them down. Maybe we've had our feelings hurt before, and we don't like to do that to other people. You may say yes out of obligation or habit, or maybe you've just got to say yes to everything and everybody. And that's a little bit about what we're going to look at tonight.
Okay, Rog, we're having a little bit of a problem with hearing you occasionally, so I don't know whether there's any screens that you can put that down and clear up. And what I'll do is I'll jump in when it becomes garbled so that everybody gets to hear the words that you're saying. So back to you.
Okay, so do I need to go back a little bit, or shall I carry on? Let me see if I can close some. So sometimes we say yes and say no, and it feels good in the moment, but then after a while, we kind of get into remorse and regret that we've said yes, we've taken on too much, we don't know how we're going to fit everything in. And then if you're in this pattern of obligation habit, you keep hoping there you go again, you've caught yourself again, somebody's asked you to do something, and without thinking, automatically you've said, oh yes, that's okay, I'll do it. So we're going to have a look at that. Maybe you worry about what's going to be the outcome of you saying no. Maybe you're concerned about how that will affect your relationship, how that will affect the other person, and what might be the outcome. This is one of my personal heroes, Paulo Coelho. He says, when you say yes to others, or you are not saying no to yourself. And this is, I think, is really good advice in terms of when we're starting to think of taking control and being a little bit more determinative than we are normally. Well, let's apply some NLP thinking to this. So what's the process that we go through when we end up saying yes and then afterwards think, I should have said? Everything we do has a process. Everything we do has stages. Those of you that have done practitioner and master practitioner will know strategies that we use. But we're going to look at a very simple process, and we're going to look at the place where you could make a difference and how you might do that. We're going to look at how you can change it. Once you know how the process works, once you can get your consciousness into it, then you can begin to change it. You can do some things that will help you do things differently in the future. We can have a look at what NLP tools will be useful. And the thing to think about is what it'll be like when I've changed. So one of the good pieces in NLP is to always think, well, what's my desired state? If I make a change and I begin to say in a more considered way, what will that be like? Begin to focus on that and that. So we're going to apply this little bit of NLP thinking to help us through this process of being able to say no and not things that we later on regret. So here's a typical sequence. We get asked to do things, right? These. And so what happens when you get a request? Maybe it's not quite as pleading as this. Even so, what happens inside? What happens inside and the sequence of things that goes on? Here's your request. So this, first of all, there's some, without really knowing it consciously, we take in the voice tone, we'll take in the person's facial expression, we'll take in their body posture, and we'll hear their words. And this observation will lead us to making some responses. Now, often this is a habitual internal response. It happens in nanoseconds. We'll have some sort of emotion that will come up. Maybe it's fear that you won't be able to help the person. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's sympathy or empathy. And the K that's there is for kinesthetic. So those of you that haven't done any NLP, you need to worry about that for the moment. This is partly for the practitioners and master practitioners. Then we might be reading the other person's mind. Well, what are they thinking? And if we say no, how will that be? We'll do something in what we call in NLP mind reading, where we kind of jump into the other person's head and attempt to make predictions about how they might feel depending on what we're going to say to them. And then we'll talk to ourselves inside. But very quickly, it can happen in a nanosecond, especially if we have this response. Well, those two things happen quickly, step one and step two to the request, and out comes your automatic external response. And you say, yes, okay, then I can do that. As the words are out of your mouth, you have a sinking feeling. You go, oh, I've done it again. I don't know whether I can do it. I don't have time. I'm going to have to find time. And then you'll start the levels of internal dialogue that begin to interfere with your ability to do things. And, you know, as soon as you say, yes, okay, then the other person says, great. Can you do it now? There's even more pressure. So where's the place where we can make a difference? Where should we apply some differences to make some changes in order for us to be able to respond? And there are some things we need to do. Clearly, the place to start is at step two. I'm just going to go back to step two. One of the things that we want to be able to do is to change that habitual response. Have different conversation and a different conversation going on with ourselves inside. This is going to help enormously to shift our habit, shift your internal response. So how do we shift our internal response? Well, first of all, the thing to do is to slow down. You might even want to say to the person, actually, I can't give you an answer straight away. Can I come back to you in 5 minutes? Can I come back to you in half an hour? You need to decide how much time you need to be able to assess things. You need to do Some self-observation. Well, when I got that request, did that make me feel inside? Did I feel excited and ready to jump on it? Did I feel a sinking feeling? Did it feel heavy? What was I saying to myself? If you start to do this bit of self-observation, then you can begin to have the place where you can apply some change. So what were you feeling? What were you saying to yourself? And even what pictures popped into your mind? Did you have pictures of being burdened down with the amount of work and extra? Now, once we've done this, we've got some data we can begin to change things. And one of the best ways to begin to create a shift is to ask yourself some questions. Now, there's a good reason for this, which I'm going to come to in a moment. So what sort of questions could you ask yourself? The first question to ask is, have I got the time, resources, and skills to do this? If you have one of those three things out, if you don't have the time, then you're going to need to say no. Do you want to do it? Is this something that you want to do? Even though it might put you out, is it something you want to do? Do you have a good reason for doing it? Ask yourself these questions. Do I want to do it? Will it be a pleasure? Will you gain out of it? Will you gain some energy? Will you gain some smiles? Will it be a pleasure for you to do it? If not, you need to think on that. How will I feel? Is it going to make me feel happy? Am I going to feel fulfilled? Will I feel down? Will I feel that it's a burden? How will I be feeling? The beauty of asking these questions, as those of you that have done some NLP know, there are some things in NLP called the presuppositions, that's hard to say, called the presuppositions of NLP. They're kind of assumptions or beliefs that help us look at circumstances. And one of the presuppositions, which I think is really useful and worth remembering, that we cannot not answer a question. If we ask ourselves a question, we'll get an answer. Now, we can't come as words. In fact, answers don't necessarily come as words. They might come as a feeling, or they might come as a picture that pops into your mind, and they might come as words. Ask yourself a question now about something. What happens? If you pay attention, somewhere inside, you'll get an answer. This is the way we're programmed. This is an extremely useful presupposition. Any time in doubt and we need to gather information, think about what sort of question you can ask yourself. And then this all means you need to slow down that internal response. So instead of happening in nanoseconds, you may need to give yourself the time for it to happen 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And, giving yourself the time to do this is really a part of your self-care and looking after yourself. Taking on too much in the long run doesn't do you any good. So here we have, the first way to start shifting your internal response. And in NLP, we're trained to ask good questions. Those new to NLP, there is a good model called the meta model, which you'll learn at some point, which allows you to ask questions. And because we cannot not answer a question, if we observe closely, not only can we have the answers from ourselves, have those answers from other people, even if they don't use words. So that's part of the journey that you can go on when you learn some NLP. So here is the first thing, the easiest thing you can do is go shift your internal response. Now, the more times you do this, you slow down questions, then the more you'll embed this response instead of the habitual jumping to, oh, yes, I'll do that for you. So now I said there was something around about to do with words, because what we've just dealt with really is about how to get yourself in a different state when we're being requested to do something. When we're making an evaluation to see, is this something that we want to do? Then you need a little bit about your words. And I've just put that together 5 things that might be useful for you to remember. If you're going to say no, be prompt as you can. Give off a little bit of time just to assess and evaluate. Be fairly prompt if you want to say no. Do it concisely. You don't need to be wordy, and say it with kindness. Be honest. don't fabricate reasons to get out of an obligation, because without a doubt they'll probably fall apart. So it's good just to be honest. And if you don't want to do something, be honest and say not. Be helpful. It's your brains. You may well think of an alternative that you can offer when you're saying no. Perhaps you know somebody else that might be able to help, or perhaps you know another way of the person may achieve their outcome. Two heads are often better than one, and 10 minutes might help work it through. Be respectful. Recognize that when you're saying no. Respect what they're trying to accomplish. Oh, that was good, wasn't it? I've got 5 things, but I've actually got 6. Be ready to repeat yourself a few times before the person is ready to accept your no. So they may not hear you the first time, especially if they're stressed about whatever it is concerning them and they want solved. So there are my 6 things to remember rather than 5. Okay. So what results can you expect? Well, if you get this together, and even though you have a little bit more time to make that decision, it's going to free up more time and resources. You're going to get clearer relationships because people understand where you are and where you stand. And you'll end up having no resentment, no remorse, and no regrets for taking on something that you really shouldn't. Being more resilient, being better at reflecting, and actually you'll be more reliable. I'll do something. You'll have the time and resources to do it and do it well. Okay, so
I'm just going to interrupt you there for a second, Roger.
Oh, okay, good.
It's going back to that clear relationship. I was with a friend over the weekend, and she said no to someone, and it didn't actually go down very well. And it was because the person had asked her, "Are you feeling strong inside?" And so she went inside, and yeah, I'm feeling quite strong. I'm feeling quite grounded. I'm not feeling, unwell or tired or anything. So then the person who'd said, "Are you feeling strong?" said, "Oh, great. Would you help me carry my really heavy suitcase to the car?" And my friend had a pain in her back, which she didn't consider it affected her strength. So she said a simple, "Well, no, actually, my back's not very good at the moment." So I think that having clearer relationships, I think when people do start to say no, that what you'll find is that there are places with people, relationships where things are not clear, where people are trying to pressurize you or manipulate you into doing something. So sometimes that can be uncomfortable. Yeah. However, it's really, really good to get it out into, because then you can deal with it. And then that gives you greater understanding of not only where you are, but where the other person is too. So I just thought that was a useful example at this point.
I think it's a really good example, because what this allows you to do is to set some boundaries and to begin to think about what are your boundaries for what's good for you and what's healthy for you. Clearly, that example, carrying somebody's heavy suitcase, even though you felt strong, wasn't going to be very healthy. So, and once people understand where you are, once people have that kind of idea of boundaries, then actually there's possibly a lot of freedom in that, because you can be clear. So what brings us up to the last slide, I think. Any questions? Because now to ask questions or ask for some clarification. It's just the start, really. There's a lot of knowledge and a lot of techniques and tools in NLP training, right from the get-go, right from the very first 4 days that you do something. You'll learn tools straight away. It's an incredibly practical art. And my background, I'm a scientist, and my background, I like to keep, and I'm a biologist as well, so I like to attach the NLP training to what happens biologically, so people can understand not only what's going on in their mind, but how their body works, because they're not separate. And if we can begin to understand how it affects their biochemistry, how our mind can work to change our chemistry, to have those good states when we need them, then there's an awful lot that can be learnt that can bring you into a place of being really, from changing you from receiving and being at the effect of things that happen in your life, to actually being more determinative and deciding what it is you want and where you're going and how you're going to get there. So there's also some coach training that we do, coaches training, and the other things we do is some one-to-one coaching. So wherever you are, there's something here that is going to benefit you. And we also run break. Sometimes you hit some rough water, and you need to have a bit of a breakthrough. So not only do we teach, not only do we do, but we also teach people how to do these things as well, so that they can be independent. We believe so that they have the tools to do this kind of stuff themselves. So I don't know whether we've got any questions coming up. We're coming up to 28 minutes past. I said these are just short half-hour webinars so that you can get on with your life, especially at this time of year as we're coming up to the Christmas break.
So we don't have any questions just at the moment. I think everybody has learned how to say no, Roger.
Yeah, they have. They're saying no. Good.
Good.
Okay.
And I think that was what you went through is really, really useful. So let us know if you want the slides, or they'll automatically get a replay so that you can watch the slides again. And hold on a second. Yes, very good. Yes, Sue says that she thinks that the slowing down and giving yourself time to think is a very good pointer. The other thing that is really useful to do is, if you're not ready to decide at the moment, just tell the person, actually, that's something that I'd like a few moments, a few hours, a few days, a few weeks. No, don't make it too long to think about it, and tell them that you'll get back to them.
Absolutely.
And it's a very good idea to say when you'll get back to them, because otherwise it's a bit open-ended. So, who else is there? Just
while Emily's doing that, if something you'd like covered, something that occurs in life that, like saying no, then drop me an email or drop Emily an email. Let us know, because I'm really happy to make these webinars really useful. And the idea is just to find small applications in half an hour that we can. So where can we apply some NLP? What would be the way that that would work using a little bit of NLP, and something that you can do easily and use easily in your life. Michael's saying dealing with indecision. Okay, I'll take that one and have a look and see exactly what I might do with that. Okay, so if there's no more questions, then I'm going to stop the broadcast and we're going to sign out and watch your emails. We're going to have another live webinar, a Wednesday webinar in January. I'm not sure of the date yet, but I will be letting you know. We'll be putting it on Facebook and we'll send an email out. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for being here. And again, feel free to email questions, because sometimes these questions crop up a little bit later on. Take care and have a great Christmas and New Year. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.